will get started for the evening. So first of all, welcome and thank you for joining us on this platform tonight to provide us with another opportunity to just share with you some information about our hybrid model for the opening of schools. Our principals and central office administrators are here this evening to talk a little bit about what that's going to look like in a hybrid model. The agenda for tonight has been structured based on the questions that have come in through opening Haverford email and other sources. Some have emailed schools, some have sent emails to the school board, and we've tried to cull all of that together and put an agenda where, that consists of the information that we can provide in terms of answering questions. We know that there will be questions that we cannot answer. The fluid nature of this pandemic sometimes makes it very challenging for us to know exactly how to describe what is going to happen. But if there is something that we can't answer this evening, once we get the answer, we will continue to update the FAQ document that has been posted on our website. So if it's something that we can't answer, it doesn't mean that we don't want to. It's that we don't have all of the information yet that we need in order to be able to provide an informed response. Our goal is always to eventually reach a point where all children are back in our schools and experiencing school as we have come to know and love it over the period of time. We know that whatever you choose, and it's not an easy time to make a decision. The folks that you're going to hear from tonight are all parents themselves as well as educators. And know the challenges that you're faced with trying to decide what is the best environment for your child. Please rest assured that whether you choose the hybrid model or choose Haverford Online, the experience that your child is going to have is going to be provided by our loving and caring teachers who strive to create nurturing and warm environments in whatever the setting is. So with that being said, I'm actually going to turn you over now to Joel DiBartolomeo, who is the principal at Chestnut Wald Elementary. He will get us started, and you will hear from each of our principals this evening. Mr. D.
Thank you, Dr. Rushi, colleagues, Haverford community. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for giving up some time this evening, postponing dinner or eating an early one to allow us the opportunity to share some things about our school and the hybrid model specifically. I'm going to refer back to my presentation that was shared with the board. I believe those presentations are on the district website. You can access those, and this too will find its way there, I'm sure, at some point in the future. The A-B hybrid model, what does a day in a life look like in that schedule? Students will be cohorted into an A or B. They'll be assigned into an A or B cohort at district office. We will pull out students who choose the online portion of instruction, and from there we will have our students divided, alphabetized in an A or a B cohort. Cohort A reports on Mondays and Wednesdays. They'll be online for instruction Tuesdays. They'll be online Tuesday and Thursday. Cohort B reports to school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they will have online Mondays and Wednesdays. The same for kindergarten. Kindergarten A and PM will report with their assigned A or B cohort and their AM or PM session. Fridays will be online. Instructional focus on Fridays will be interventions, enrichment, and a strong focus on the social studies and science. At this time, there are over approximately 2,500 students who have not yet indicated their intent for a preference. For our planning needs, this information influences our decision-making across the district's 7 schools and all systems. At this time, we are asking families to indicate their intended preference only. By noting your intent to register, we will have more accurate information to use for our planning and decision-making. Arrival and dismissal. Arrival time will be extended and will be flexible. The instructional day will begin near 9:10 p.m. Kindergarten will begin at near 1 o'clock. Logistics for arrival, dismissal, and other important details at the building level, they will be communicated by your building principal. As we approach the start of the school year, that information will come from those sources. Starting the day with morning meeting. Morning meeting will be held virtually each day of school. The schedule will be set by the homeroom teacher. Live meetings with the homeroom teacher will be available. All students who elect the hybrid model are invited to attend and will have access to virtual homeroom meetings from home or in school. I'm going to do a quick overview of our daily schedule. And I apologize if I'm going a little fast through this. I want to get to the questions. We have only about an hour and a half, so I want to make sure we allot enough time to answer those questions. Instructional delivery, grades 1 through 5, ELA, English Language Arts will be between 100 and 110 minutes, math between 65 and 70 minutes, and social studies science about 30 minutes. Again, the focus for social studies and science, that will be on Friday online sessions. And of course, all programming comes from Haverford School District adopted programming and PDE approved. Our specials will be delivered each day from 50 to 60 minutes. They include art, music, library, PE. Guidance will remain a very important part of our schedule, and it will remain 30 minutes. All teachers, homeroom and specials teachers alike, they will facilitate movement breaks outside whenever possible. A sample schedule for a student in grade 1 through 5. We'll use an example from Cohort A. Week 1, Monday, they might have PE, 50 to 60 minutes, and then that Wednesday, they might have library. It may look different in a couple of weeks, given changes and enrollment, all of those other factors that will influence these decisions. The second week, that same child may have music or art. So we would expect that all the children will rotate through a full schedule of their specials courses over the course of a 2 to 3 week period. Kindergarten will maintain their guidance in addition to one special over a 2 week period. Instruction for kindergarten, ELA, English Language Arts, be between 45 and 60 minutes. Math will be about 40 minutes. Social studies and science be about 30 minutes. Teachers will schedule breaks to get outside where possible. And kindergarten students will have specials each week, as I mentioned, with our guidance and the off week, the alternative special. Just wanted to share this again, some closing thoughts. The decision-making about our schedule, the practices, the logistics, and our school operations are being done with the greatest amount of consideration to the well-being of our students, teachers, and the school community. Decisions are made in the interest of sustaining the caring and compassionate environments familiar in our schools. Safety is our priority. That our students love school and enjoy learning are principal tenets in our work. Our teachers and administrative team remain committed to creating a learning environment modeled on these beliefs. We remain committed to a school culture that is built upon the tenets of our basis work in belonging and inclusion. They will remain our priority through this process. It's an all hands on deck approach. I'm proud to be a member of this team, and we are all in this together. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Whitehead, excuse me. Sorry.
Jabari, before you get started, we did have a couple of questions in the chat, and I'm just trying to keep them with the sections as they get presented here. Just questions about the cohort. So there were several of them worded a couple of different ways, but essentially, are siblings going to remain together in the cohort?
Absolutely.
So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So the important first step for us is to, of course, identify who is going to be in school and who is going to be at home. Once we know that, we can then start to formulate our class lists. Once we have that information, we will, of course, go through by building, where if there are multiple siblings in a building for a chestnut wall, we have many families, and all 5 buildings, I'm sure, in the same position. You know, we want to make it as convenient as possible so that a family who has multiple siblings will be on the same schedule, an A cohort or a B cohort. You know, so yes, absolutely, we are committed to that.
And just on a related note, a question came through about what about if you have siblings in another school, so at the middle school or at the high school. And I know that Dr. Rushi had spoken about that at a prior board meeting. I don't know, Dr. Rushi, do you want to respond? Or?
Certainly. We cannot make any promise to keep students in the same family together when it spans into the secondary level. And a lot of times that is going to be due to the nature of some of the unique courses that our students take in the high school, and the time that is offered. So we are not going to try to look at that. Our primary focus for keeping families together is going to be at the elementary level.
And the last cohorting question had to do with leveling. So will students remain with their leveled groups, or how is that going to work with cohorting?
We are committed to the focused teaching in grades 4 and 5. In grades 3, 4, and 5, students will be grouped heterogeneously. We will be sure to differentiate. Our program this year allows, years past as well, but now with our new math program, we are actually better positioned to differentiate for our students of different abilities in the same classroom. So our focus now is making sure that our classrooms are heterogeneously grouped and that we have teachers with the greatest expertise in front of students delivering that content for that group of students.
Great. Now, there were other questions in the chat, but I know there's also more content that the principals will share that I believe will address some of those questions. I will continue to monitor the chat, and we'll return to questions that haven't been answered, and we'll do our best to get through those. There was a question whether or not this is being recorded, and it is. So it will be recorded, and it is being recorded, and it will be posted on our website for those of you who can't stay the whole time or who were not unable to attend at all. Okay, so without further ado, Dr. Whitehead, sorry to interrupt there. Hope you can take it away.
No worries. Hello, everyone. I'm Jabari Whitehead, a proud principal of Chatham Park Elementary School. So I'm excited to talk to you along with my colleagues today about what it's going to be like when your child arrives at school, the in-class experience. Right from the start, when your child arrives, the arrival structure may look a little different, but the most important piece you'll recognize is that each student will arrive at school and they'll be greeted by a caring adult, whether it be a teacher from their class or a paraprofessional or even the principal themselves. But right away, they'll begin that connection as they arrive safely. I mean, the only distance that they may have, only difference they have at this point is that is the use of masks and the fact that they'll be physically distanced 6 feet apart when they arrive. So we'll keep that as consistent as possible, even upon arrival. They'll enter the building and go to their classroom area in line with their teachers. And before they arrive into the classroom, the next precaution will be made to make sure they receive hand sanitizer so we can begin moving to their designated classroom learning environment. So they're going to their classroom, and at that time in their classroom, they'll arrive at their desk, which is distance 6 feet apart from the other desk in their classroom. Again, it's a small classroom environment. So right away, we'll already have a great opportunity to begin developing an intimate connection with our students. We start with our morning meetings, and in that morning meeting time, because of our smaller structure in attendance, our students and teachers will begin to discuss students' interest from the day before, self-concept about themselves, awareness, how they're feeling about their day, how they're feeling about the school experience, connections to learning that be made from the day before or that day. How are we going to start that? It'll provide time for more student voice and more student feedback in that time, since we are having our students attend on an A-B cycle. So that's a gift within itself. From there, not much different besides the fact that, again, we're going through all our healthy steps and precautions to make sure our students are looking forward to having an exciting day. Our teachers will begin, whether it could be grades K-2 starts out with math for the day according to their schedule, or it could be where they're starting out with upper grades, starting out with English language arts during the course of the day. With English language arts, what we're able to do is there'll still be shared reading. We're still following the benchmark literacy program as a resource. We're still involved in the guided reading. We're still following the standards. So not much has changed except for making sure we take the precautions to make sure everyone is healthy at the school. We're committed to having a vibrant environment where student voice and feedback helps us understand and have knowledge of all learners, which includes the fact that our students who receive services throughout the course of the day will still be pulled out for supplemental support, where they'll receive support from their teacher, the direct instruction. That does not change. And again, we're traveling with our healthy distance in mind. When we're there, the instruction is still, again, standards-based. The lessons are still focused on targeted instruction, targeted goals for our students. Whether it's enrichment, their students are still receiving the support in that environment. Reading specialist support is still there. Again, still following the health and safety protocols that we set forth for our schools, for our students to attend. And again, we're excited about our students. We're going to make sure our students are celebrated. We're still looking for ways for parental involvement, whether it be virtually or at a healthy distance. We're finding ways to keep that inclusion to make sure we have a very exciting school day. Our goal is to make sure our social emotional well-being is intact for all learners and the paraprofessionals and the teachers involved, to make sure that everyone is feeling a sense of belonging. Our teachers are still utilizing, all adults, including myself, will still be utilizing the positive adult language, making sure we understand the power behind our words and knowing that our voice becomes the student's internal voice. So our external voice is their internal voice. We want to make sure that we're really staying connected with our learners. But again, the gift in this is the fact that we have a smaller environment. Our teachers are able to engage the learners, get more feedback, and through that, we're actually able to, with that great knowledge learner, the pacing and appropriate and targeted instruction can even intensify. So we're excited. I think we're boldly optimistic about what this team is able to do and the engagement of our students, regardless of whether they're here or online, wherever they need to be. And again, throughout the course of the day, they have a lunch, they have recess, and our colleagues are going to talk more about that. But as they leave, they will know that they've had a caring adult to engage them throughout the course of the day and instruct the language arts, the science, the social studies, the math that takes place, and our morning meeting time. So our focus hasn't changed outside of making sure our precautions for our students to attend in a healthy manner is what is being at the forefront. Thank you very much. And I'm going to pass this along to my colleague, Ms. Jillian McGilvery, principal of Linwood Elementary School. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Whitehead. Good evening, Haverford. Hello, Linwood Lion families. Hello, everyone out there. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about what our plan is for meeting students where they are. We know that it's been a long few months out of school, and we very much look forward to seeing your children and welcoming them back to school and sharing the wonderful school experiences with them, while we know they're going to be a little bit different. The first few days that our students are back with us, our work will focus on getting to know our students, getting to know them, building our classroom communities, building relationships with our children. It's so important. It's at the forefront of all of our work in Haverford. And we know now it's going to be especially important that we have the relationships built, we have the connections. We don't know what's going to happen in the event that we might be forced to go virtual at some point. We want to make sure that we have the relationships and that students are comfortable in their classroom community and that they're a part of building the classroom community. So that's going to be very important right off the bat, as we're always wanting to provide that nurturing environment for our students and spend time really getting to know each child. The physical environment is going to be new. There will be new routines, new expectations, new technology. We'll spend some time explicitly teaching children about what's new, helping them with that, and really teaching them how to use the new tools as we are navigating school in a very different way this year. As far as curriculum and instruction, this is important and this is big. And we know a lot of time has passed, but we're continuing with learning. We will have some advantages. We're going to have a smaller group of students. We will have some more individualized time with students to get to know them, to provide the students with the supports they need, with the enrichment they need, and we'll be building in those opportunities. As far as reading, we know reading instruction is key for all students, especially at our elementary school, especially in our elementary grades and K1 and 2 in particular. All of our teachers are going to read individually with each child when they come in. We're going to listen to them read, note where they are, and take that child and move forward with their reading from that point on. We'll continue with guided reading. We're going to be creative about how we're going to do these things. We certainly won't be able to, it's not going to look the same way as it did before, but we know how important it is to give kids the instruction that they need for reading. For writing, we'll pick up with writing conferences and vocabulary development and with our word work, all of those things, building and comprehension checks. So it's going to be different, but it's really important, and we're going to move forward with the learning to make sure that each child gets exactly what they need. With math instruction, we are continuing with the curriculum. Our students are in a new grade, so there'll be new curriculum, and while that is not changing, the standards aren't changing, the content won't be changing. This year we have some new resources, and we look forward to having those resources better help our students, giving some new tools to our teachers, so that when we're up and running with math instruction, we have some more to pull from. With math, as we're starting in the new grade, we're starting with new units, we'll build in, as teachers always do, but we'll have those checks for understanding at the beginning of each unit to find out what students know. Do students need a little bit of extra reteaching, or is there something else that we can do at the start of the unit as we move through instruction with students? We'll always be checking in, checking for readiness, providing the supports that are needed, and moving through to make sure they are getting what they need with their learning. One other piece, and this is not a new piece, but we've had it in our schedules, called intervention and enrichment time. Your kids may have called it I&E time or stretch time or flex time or something like that, but we've had this core time built into our schedule with no new instruction, so that we can provide supports for children, we can provide enrichment, we can pull small groups, work individually, and we look forward to having that time in our schedule. At the beginning of the day, we'll have some more room with a staggered arrival. At the end of the day, we'll have some more time to work with individual kids, to work in small groups, really provide challenging opportunities, enriching opportunities, give students who need it some reteaching, get them set for what they'll be doing when they're at home, or be able to navigate and give some more individual attention to that. So that, there are going to be some advantages with the smaller classes and the smaller groups, and we know how critical the time is going to be with our students when they're there in person, and we will strive to make the most of it, give kids exactly what they need. We are going to move to a different topic with my colleague at Coopertown, Miss Master Cola, who will talk to us about outdoor spaces.
Thank you, Mrs. McGilvery. Hello, elementary guardians, and a special shout out, of course, to my Coopertown families. I can't wait to see you all. Thank you for attending tonight. I get to speak about the best part, going outside more. We all know the many benefits of time for our students and teachers, being in the fresh air. All of the 5 principals will be allocating outside space to each of their teachers. This space will be used for outside breaks, for learning opportunities, and also for recess. Being outside more will allow our students to take a mass break, breathe in some fresh air, and just take advantage of many of the mental health benefits that we all know that come from being in the fresh air. Some of our students have built-in breaks into their IEPs and 504s, so this will be an additional help to them as well. This is really a great opportunity for our small cohorts to bond. Perhaps do some yoga stretches, play some games, whatever it is they might need at that day to relax and enjoy one another. And let's be honest, to socialize with one another. I know I have an only child at home, and she's really looking forward to that opportunity. In addition, teachers can use their designated space to do some learning. This could look like SSR, read alouds, maybe some math applications, maybe even some hands-on science experiments. We all know we have creative teachers and students at all of our elementary schools, and they're going to take advantage of this time. Recess, everyone's favorite. It will continue every day. It might be before or after lunch, depending on when your school does that. Cohorts will again be given their individual space and give themselves time again to play and socialize with one another. Now Mr. Raimundos is going to share with us what it's going to be like to eat if you take advantage of the hybrid model.
Thank you, Miss Mastrocola. Another favorite is the cafeteria. I'm really looking forward to going ahead again and making my girls' lunches. Looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Good evening, Haverford families. I am George Raimundos, the proud principal of Manoa Elementary. This evening, I'll be discussing the cafeteria procedures during the hybrid model. The cafeteria provides an opportunity for children to eat and socialize. We know that this will look different in the hybrid model, but we are committed to creating a safe and fun atmosphere where children will be able to eat, talk with their friends, and also take a mask break. Each cafeteria will be separated into classroom cohorts. Some buildings will need to utilize the cafeterias and gyms for lunch due to the 6 feet requirement of social distancing. Teachers will assign students in their cohort to a lunch table. This is the seat they will sit in on a daily basis. Teachers will assign the seats in hopes that students will be paired socially. Tables will be at least 8 feet long and will hold 2 students per table. Chairs will be arranged so that students are not facing one another. Students will wash their hands at the sink in the classroom or at the hallway bathroom before entering the cafeteria. Teachers will review proper hand washing with students on the first day of school and continuously through the first days and weeks of school. After lunch, students will utilize hand sanitizer before going out to recess. More information about school lunches will be forthcoming once the food service department has finalized their plans. Each principal will be creating a video to be shared with families so that students will see their cafeteria and what it will look like and what specific procedures will look like for their school. This has concluded the principal discussion of the hybrid model. We will now respond to as many questions as possible in the chat box with the time allotted. Mrs. Saxa, can you please start to share with us the questions from the families? Thank you, everyone.
Sure. Thank you. One that might be an easy, fast one. We got a couple of questions about what time is dismissal?
So, dismiss, I saw that. That's a good question. I should have mentioned that in my part. Arrival will be staggered. Dismissal will also be staggered to the greatest degree possible, so we can ensure physical safety distances as required by guidelines. Dismissal will begin with buses. We have to confirm with transportation. So there's still a number of variables. How many students are in the school? How are we going to get our students from one place to the other? But I suspect that we will probably begin that process about 3 o'clock, ending with, hopefully getting everyone onto the final bus no later than 3:35, getting out of the building.
Great.
That has been something we have been looking at in all 5 buildings.
Ms. Saxa, before you move on, if I could add to what Mr. G was just mentioning as a clarifying point, because I saw a question come through as well indicating that school starts at 9 o'clock. We want the children arriving, well before, before that time. We realize that we can't say everybody has to be in the building at 8:45. Otherwise, we are congregating adults and children all at once. And the same that Mr. D just described for dismissal. So there may be a schedule for dismissal in terms of when the buses depart, and that if you are a parent picking your child up, a window of time, because we also do not want to have, if you're at a neighborhood school and people are walking, again, we don't want people congregating in large groups in front of the school. So the principals have come to the realization that dismissal may need to begin at 3 o'clock. That does not mean that anyone who wants to arrives at the school to pick their child up at 3 o'clock. There will be a schedule for that as well.
A couple of questions came in just asking some things about the Haverford Online. And I just wanted to mention that Haverford Online, we do have a whole site and we held a meeting just like this. Not that you necessarily want to sit through all an hour and a half of that meeting. We also have a posted FAQ, frequently asked questions document. And you can find all of that on the front page of our website. Just to answer a few of the quick questions about that we're hoping that everyone will complete their registration forms for Haverford Online, if that is what they're choosing for a child in their family, by August 7th. They are available now on the website by August 7th. That's the actual registration. You also have a parent preference form, which is talking about more than Haverford Online. It's asking about transportation and so forth. We're asking that you return that by August 1st. A couple of questions that asked about the pacing with Haverford Online and will it be the same as what is the pacing in a hybrid model? We're using the same curriculum materials. We have Haverford teachers working through that. We would imagine that the pacing will remain pretty well aligned. Smaller classes move more quickly There's no doubt about it. So we'll sort of have a little day or two off, but generally speaking, that will be in the same pace. And just a question came through, are you committing for the whole year for Haverford Online? And the answer is no. We are asking folks to commit through the first trimester just so we can make sure we have our resources allocated appropriately. And, you know, we'll get that program started at the same time that we get the other program started, and then we can make adjustments from there as necessary. A lot of cohorting questions. Back to, and we may not know the answer to this, but even a general idea. Any idea when people might learn about cohorting, or if they have a specific documented situation or a request that they need to make about cohorting? Is there any information you can add about that?
I'll jump in there first, and then I saw Mr. D raise a hand. A lot of this, so what will happen time-wise? August 1st, we will then begin that following Monday, taking a look at all the information. Each of the buildings will receive that information. They have been receiving it, but they will receive that information by student name. They then have to compare that list of student names to the list of student names that are in our system as students in our system, and cross-reference that to see that everyone who has been registered in our schools did in fact complete the survey information. They've already started to look at the cohorting piece from there, but that would be the next step that would begin. So that would take us, sometime into, that week that would begin. I would imagine it would be the following week that people would know, but I'll yield to whatever Mr. D was going to indicate.
Thank you, Dr. Rushi. I was going to echo those, or like say those same things. There are a number of questions here as far as choice and those sorts of things. We consider any letter that comes across our desk, but this is going to be a time where, we are going to, I would imagine, adhere to the program, that the distribution that is given to us and that we are putting in place as far as the designation of an A or a B cohort. Questions about, are we using last names? Yes, we will be using last names. We know that there are families who may have different last names. We are going to do all we can to identify who they are. It's not going to be perfect. If we have misidentified students or families, please let us know so we could make corrections and make sure those families are all on the same day. But as far as, providing options, that's not going to be possible for us. But of course, if you want to write us a letter, we consider anything that comes across our desk.
Thank you. Lots of questions about what we heard about the in-person day. Now, what about the days when students are not in school and they are doing their learning at home? I don't know if any of the principals want to address that, or if I can get us started in any way.
I'll hop in here. So really quick, on opportunities when they're at school, say for example, if it's a Monday, Wednesday student at Cohort A, then we have opportunity to the teacher will be able to front load and be able to make sure students are aware of what's going to be taking place while they're out on the next day, whether it's a pre-recorded assignment or whatever resource that we're utilizing. That will be the opportunity, and we're still in a development of creating that and making sure we put the best platform forward for our students to be successful.
Great, thank you, Dr. Whitehead. Yes, so the time that we have to remember when our students are in school, the teachers are there every day and they are always teaching a group of students. It's just a smaller group of students. So we are going to do just what Dr. Whitehead was just talking about. We're going to take advantage of the in-person time to be focusing on finding out what is it that students understand so that we can give them chances to practice things with getting immediate feedback from us. We will be providing opportunities for kids to explore, for students to see different skills modeled. And then what they'll do is before you leave for the day, here's what tomorrow is going to look like. This needs to be first. You're going to watch this 5-minute video clip. It has questions embedded in it. We're all using the learning management system called Canvas. And so all of the assignments will live on Canvas. That will be the main communication hub, which should reduce a number of the emails that folks were getting last year. We'll still be using the Google suite, which includes Google Docs or Forms that can all be managed in Canvas, but Canvas will be sort of like your child's notebook or backpack where everything lives. And so they will use Canvas to work through what that learning looks like on that day. Teachers will recommend an agenda. There will be attendance taken. There will be grading of whatever that work is. There will be a focus on spending that time to learn through creating as well as learning through consuming and learning through communicating. It's just, I think it's important to remember that even when kids are in school every day, they don't spend all day, every day, listening to a teacher talk to them. They spend a lot of time working with each other, engaged with their materials, and so forth. So at this point, that's the kind of instruction that we're expecting students to engage in at that time during the in-home time. It's one of the reasons, and this addresses another one of the questions that came up. It's one of the reasons to consider a model that has a Monday, Wednesday, and a Tuesday, Thursday, because you can set up as a teacher, here's what tomorrow looks like. And then the very next day you can say, let me help you through that. Or, hey, this is what really worked with that. Now we're going to help you get to the next level with it. So you have less time elapsing between the setup and the feedback. It also allows us to put our eyes on children, make connections with their counselors, the support staff, and so forth, more frequently throughout a week. And we don't have like a three school day gap without seeing children, or even a 5 actual day gap for that. I think that sort of may help answer some questions about what it looks like online. I do have a follow-up question. Will there be remote projects? Yes, thank you for asking that. So there certainly will be times where part of what the teacher says before you leave for the day is, now go talk, we're gonna, Dr. Whitehead, you're going to be meeting with Dr. Raimundos tomorrow. Don't forget, you're both working on your Google Doc assignment. Let's open that up and make sure you have access to it. Do you know how to click here? Okay, show me you know how to do it. Turn something in before you leave today. And it really will help us, particularly in the beginning of the year, orient the kids to using the technology, and then help them set up those relationships while they're in person so that they're comfortable connecting with each other when they are at home as well. Question, will they have Canvas in school as well? And the answer is yes to that. Okay, so we also had some other, I'm going to scroll back up here and see what else we have. Oh, kindergarten. So we had some questions. Will kindergarten follow the same structure?
So yes, they will be on the same rotation, A/B cohort, AM, PM. Yes, they will.
Great. And what about the fact that there are a lot of holidays that fall on Mondays? Now you're thinking like a principal, whoever said that question. I believe that Mr. D may have researched that.
We had this broken out. If you give me a second, and I'll return, but I'll circle back to this. I have actually the numbers in my computer, so just give me a second to go back. We did look at this. It was equitable on the Monday through Thursday. Amazingly, it sort of fell into a distribution. Lots on Monday, lots through the course of the week, fewer in the middle. It was relatively even. I think there might have been. I don't even want to say the difference, what it might have been, but it was insignificant. It wasn't material. It wasn't more than 5 days difference between the A, and the B cohort. But that's something that I could look at while we're going into the other questions.
Great. I have a question here that actually helps just talk about Fridays a little bit here. It says, will students need to attend live meetings or lessons at a certain time on days that they are home? Generally speaking, no, but we do plan on using Fridays as a day to pull the cohorts together, and for students to be able to participate in a multitude of ways with a multitude of students. Are any of the principals want to elaborate on that at all?
Well, I'll go ahead and talk about, I think, Fridays. We talked about the opportunity to stay connected with the smaller groups. Students even receive support, being able to pull those groups together for a check-in. Guidance opportunities may be available at that time as well. And then also being able to provide, whether it's independent practice on those days would still be, but then as far as synchronous learning time or asynchronous learning time, it really will depend on the students' needs, and then we'll be planning accordingly to do so.
Great.
Hey, Jen, can we also think about kindergarten orientation? The elementary principals are thinking of creative and safe ways to possibly be holding kindergarten orientation at our buildings, obviously with social distancing. So that is something that we're thinking about because we understand that's really important for our kindergartners and also our new families as well. So that's something that we're working on. And then more information will be coming out about that as well.
Mr. D, you're muted.
Sorry, I wanted to circle back to that question. The Monday and Wednesday group, there are 11 missed school days. Tuesday and Thursday, there are 8 missed school days.
Great. Thanks for doing that research. Okay, we did have, oh, sorry, am I talking over someone?
Oh, no, I can add that with this too. It's very much like when you do letter days at like the middle school model, because you map out the entire year in terms of planning and instruction, you'll be able to pick up where you left off because you already know those days, where those days lie ahead of time. So you just map out and pick up where you left off with those days in advance. It's not reactive to, now we're off again, I'm missing something, but it's already pre-planned.
Couple of questions about masks and playground equipment, just ventilation, that sort of thing. How are they going to have a mask break? How could that be safe? Could we talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I saw about the mask break, especially if we're outside. Obviously the kids would have to be socially distanced at that point to be able to take their mask off, but because of the ventilation outside, it does create a safer environment for them to do so. And I mean, we've all worn masks and we all know you do need a little time without it on your face. So that'll be well coordinated and taught to the students by the teachers. The other question about sanitizing the equipment, it's going to be sanitized every morning. It has to sit for a little bit, and then the different cohorts will be assigned. We're only going to be able to assign a cohort, and then it will have to be cleaned again. So there's going to be a rotation of who can use our equipment. And again, every principal is going to have to make that schedule for their school. So there are going to be days maybe when your student isn't on the equipment, but they'll be in another part of the yard, hopefully doing a fun game with their cohort instead. And, we'll be working closely with the PE teachers to help us coordinate those games. And should still be a good time. But yeah, we are going to sanitize the equipment in between cohorts. Is that it, Jen? Something about ventilation as well?
I think that was the idea, is we don't want to let them take off their masks if they're not in a well-ventilated area there.
Yeah, it's not the goal to do that in the building.
What does the technology equipment loan look like?
Sure, we have a plan for each of our students, a one-to-world plan that we're rolling out this year. So all students in K through 12 will have their own device assigned to them. We are looking at, I think, Chrome tablets, or we'll have Chrome tablets for, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, tablets, something like an iPad for K to 2 students, and Chromebooks for kids in grades 3 through 5. So that will be new for us. We're not, we haven't done that before, where each student will have their own device, but it will certainly help for all children to be able to access Canvas and to be able to access school tools in the classroom and at home. We know, as a parent worried about children on devices, we know that that's going to be a piece as well as working with our kids, exactly how to use them, when to use them, what to use them for. So we'll be, incorporating pieces of that into our teaching for sure.
A couple of related questions. Yes, there is IT available both for families as well as for students and teachers in the use of these devices. There will be a distribution plan for the devices that's shared at a later date. It may look a little differently at each school, so we don't want to necessarily speak to that with the larger group here. We had a couple of questions regarding instrumentals, strings, chorus, that kind of thing. So as you all know, if you're asking that question, you already know how great our music department is. But we have been having conversations about how to do this. Right now, we are looking at a virtual instrumental program. Our teachers have been following along with the recommendations from our Pennsylvania associations, national associations. I was just emailing back and forth with someone today about newly ongoing research. So they are trying to find ways to continue the study of music, but are keenly aware of the particular safety issues that arise with the use of these instruments. So we are looking at continuing with a virtual model. As far as district chorus or any of the ensembles at the higher levels, we're going to get into music classes first. We're going to see what happens with those. We're going to determine what is working, what spaces are available, and then we'll see if there is some way that we can do something like a district chorus safely, safe for our students as well as for our staff. Let's see, next. Okay, so a couple of questions about, will students still be pulled for reading, for gifted, for special education services? If my child gets different support throughout the day, what will that look like?
I can jump in here. You know, we've been working with the reading specialists and the seminar teachers to make sure that that support is still provided. You know, many of us do have rooms for them, and they always met in small groups anyway, so it kind of lends itself to the cohorts that we're building. In addition, they are also available on the Friday to have, if they had to work with small groups, they could do like the Zoom that they've done, I'm sorry, not the Zoom, but the Google Meets that they've done in the past. That goes the same with the special ed services that
Is it just me, or has?
Yeah, I believe she was going to talk about special education and pulling out those students as well too. So we're going to be able to take those small groups and do it in a safe manner as well, and social distance. And each building principal has been looking at their rooms to make sure that we're able to meet that social distancing as well. So those groups will be pulled out.
And if I could just add a plug, tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, our Department of Pupil Services will be hosting a very similar information session regarding how all of this affects our students with IEPs, GIEPs, 504 plans, and our English learners as well. So, you know, please go to our website and see the link for tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, where we can give you a lot of information regarding the topics.
Just want to piggyback with one final thought. For any child, you know, who might be in need of, if they're not in school, if I'm in a cohort and it's Tuesday and I'm struggling with my math, and it's something that might be persistent, you know, we will have eventually, once our systems get up and once we again know the logistics of our enrollment and available resources, like we did in the spring, we plan to be able to provide those interventions and enrichment opportunities for those children who might need some individualized support, whether it, you know, outside of a 504, an IEP, a GIEP, those sorts of things. So we are looking at how we are going to use our resources for that purpose as well.
And what about 4th and 5th grade after school sports?
Yeah, I know we began a conversation about what healthy activities can we do? How can we do it in a physically safe manner? So that's still being addressed. Certainly, we want to make sure we find opportunity for students to be engaged physically and feel a part of school, because those activities are really a big part of belonging in our work. So we'll take a look at that and then come up with an accurate response once we figure out what will work best in a safe and healthy manner.
And Jabari, just to piggyback on what you said, I mean, we're looking outside the box too, right? That could mean like cross country in the fall as opposed to flag football, which we know is, you know, a little too much contact. So, you know, we're kind of open to ideas, and a lot of us are athletes in this group, so we're collaborating on that a lot.
Great. We did have a few questions about what the buses will look like. Do you want to talk from the perspective of the people who are helping them load on and load off of those buses?
While they're collecting their thoughts, I will start. We have very explicit directions from the Chester County Department of Health about, and the Pennsylvania Department of Education about the process for loading and unloading buses in terms of what children are to go to the back of the bus, almost snake around in their seats before they would even begin to put two to a seat. The focus for 2 students on a seat would be children from the same family that, on there as well, where we're going to hope that there will be some parental support is at the bus stop, and trying to assist in some way. Like, we know the children are going to be congregating there, but we do have some very specific directions for loading, and I'll let one of my other colleagues talk about arriving at the school and departing from the school.
And we know it's difficult to social distance on the bus, so we're going to be requiring the students to wear masks as well when they're on the bus. That's going to be really important for the kids. And our goal of ours too is, as we mentioned, creating videos. We as a team will be creating a video to show the students what it's going to look like, boarding the bus, on the bus, and wearing our masks, being safe on the bus, and then exiting off the bus as well too. So we'll be working on that as well.
And at arrival, as they come off the bus, there will be adults, faculty, greeting them, ensuring that they are keeping safe distance as they come off the bus and get into their location, whether it be their meeting, their peers, homeroom peers, and a teacher, or they are just going off the bus right into the building. There will be adults at each stage, and Dr. Whitehead mentioned this before. At the entrance, there'll be adults who will be holding sanitizer, making sure that students have access to the sanitizer, wiping their hands. So we have a plan in place from the moment they are actually on the bus until they are into their homeroom and then back out.
And it's important for us to be greeting the kids and saying hello, and that's an important part of the day to see how they're doing. We never want to forget that piece as well too.
Great. A couple of questions are coming in just about ventilation, particularly in buildings or rooms where there is not air conditioning.
Well, we discussed that as far as ventilation goes. The classrooms have windows that open, so it makes sure that the windows are open ahead of time and that the air is flowing in the classroom. And as much as possible, we'll utilize spaces that have windows. With that being considered, and we're in constant contact with our facilities operations department to make sure, and they're very much aware.
Great, thanks. A couple of questions about, so what happens if we're hybrid and then we go back into the red, or for some other reason we are instructed to close our school buildings? What will happen? What's the model there?
That model will be 100% virtual. So our teachers would be still interacting with your children, following their daily schedule, not on the computer screen talking at the children all day long, but following the schedule. If math typically starts at 9 o'clock, a touch in that's maybe a mini lesson. This is what we're going to work on, breaking the kids out into some smaller groups. Teacher works with a smaller group, independent work that children will be doing. Whatever time ELA would start, then they would begin that similar process. Everybody together, a description for what we're going to do, how we're going to use this time. Maybe some small guided reading groups, occurring at that time.
We also have a few questions about testing, various kinds of testing. One is, if my child was in the process of being tested for an individualized education plan, do they have to be a part of the hybrid model for that to occur? Another question, will we continue to do the screening for gifted services that we typically did, for a whole grade of students? Will children be tested upon entry to discover their reading level so we know where to instruct them? I'll sort of throw them out there and see who wants to take them, and then I'm happy to answer anything I can as well.
I think that Julian touched on the fact that it's a major goal of ours to have every student in the hybrid model read with their teacher when they first arrive. You know, we were using a process to figure out what reading level they were, and, you know, as much as possible, we will continue to do that so that we, as Jillian described, really know the reader in front of us. There was a couple more questions about very specific pupil services questions. So I'm hoping that Natalia will jump in to answer about, you know, if you're in the hybrid model and you'd requested testing, what will that look like as opposed to being online?
Sure. And a lot of those questions we really will answer tomorrow night. You know, the hybrid model is different than being in Haverford online. And I think that that is something to consider. And even if we go virtual, 100% virtual, we're told that that has to happen. That remains separate from Haverford online as well. So tomorrow night, we will put out a lot of information for all families as specific and as we can be, while keeping in mind that we're working with a lot of students with individualized plans, which is always tricky. So, but again, the contact and the relationships with teachers is really the focus there, and getting to know your children, and knowing, you know, when we need to call in other professionals into a situation. So that model will continue. Our teachers are great at that. And we'll continue to make sure that those supports are there for all of our students.
Can I just add one thing? Speaking with some people today, just want to share some of the work that our district has done, and the value that we are placing on collecting students' performance information, not just, you know, grading students and assessing them for those purposes. You know, we missed 3 months of a school year, from March to June, 3-4 months. You know, the summer has been disrupted. The fall is going to be disrupted. We recognize all of that. Learning for these children has not been ideal for the last 6 months. We spent, as a district and in our buildings, I know, a great deal of time identifying what was missed, what was essential, what do we need to fill going forward. You know, early on in the summer, that was the focus of our work, and how do we address that entering the fall. That work continues. As Ms. Mastrocola and Ms. McGilvery were saying, you know, we are committed to learning about our children, to know how we can differentiate for them in the classroom. That is a starting point for us, whether it be, you know, reading with the child, giving some benchmark assessments, normed assessments, just so we know where our students are, so we know how to proceed. That is very important, and it is a priority for us in our school district. I just wanted to share that before we move forward.
Thanks. A couple of questions about if the hybrid has to go 100% virtual, because someone has told us we cannot operate in our school buildings and we have to operate 100% virtual. Will the cohorts be joined then? And will the students engage as one class? And I think I can easily say the answer to that one is yes, they will, right? So now your A and B will be working together. And I want you to know that our teachers are very keenly aware of our varying comfort levels of our students in participating in these kinds of things, and are spending time in training this summer, which will continue and will be necessary throughout the year to continue our professional development about online learning strategies, virtual learning strategies. It is not the same. Many of the sound tenets about instruction remain, but there are details that will be different, and that is something that's very much at top of our teachers' minds, is how do we ensure that our students can feel comfortable, that we learn the tricks to get them to engage with each other and feel a sense of community, whether they're online or whether they're in person. Somebody also asked, is it possible that we would go from hybrid back to 5 days of actual in-person instruction? I think we're seeing some big smiles with that idea. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn with saying we certainly hope so. That is 100% the goal. Everybody wear your mask. Dr. Rushi, do you want to add anything to that?
No, you captured that well. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we do have a couple of questions related to just what if a teacher gets sick? What if a child gets sick? What do we do? How will we know? Those sort of more technical pieces of the illness.
We get lots of questions about that. You know, so if a child, you know, exhibits symptoms, the child will be sent to the nurse's office. And then we have a 2-column flow chart, 1 symptom from column A, the child goes home, or 2 symptoms from column B, but the child goes home. We are directed for when we contact the Chester County Department of Health and get their guidance. They will make recommendations to the family as well, but they will be directing the family to your pediatrician to let the pediatrician know they would like the child to be tested. Whatever their recommendation is, they will share that with the parent. When we identify, if we learn, it's not something that's in school, but we learn, it's been communicated with us that either a child in the classroom or an adult who was in the classroom has tested positive for coronavirus, our immediate call will be to the Chester County Department of Health. They are setting up, because they encompass 2 counties now, they are setting up school teams in that office. And we will have an individual who will be assigned to our school district. That's someone who will get to know our building principals, know people in the central office. We will contact the Chester County Department of Health, and there's a series of questions that they will be asking us, the answers to which will be the decision around point for their recommendation, which is why it makes this a very difficult question to answer in a concrete way. And I sense that, I get the frustration when people ask a question, like this. So we are going to be asked, was the adult wearing a face mask? Were the children in the classroom wearing a face mask? How long were they together? Like for what period of time? So there's a litany of questions that we are going to be asked. And then depending on the series of answers that we provide to those questions, the Department of Health will say to us that that classroom should be quarantined this evening. No one should go in for 24 hours, or they may say everyone back tomorrow, no issues, based on their metrics as the health authority, they will be telling us that. And the same thing would go once they will be monitoring the number of cases within our county, and then within the county, within each of the school districts. We do not know, and the superintendents have been asking, what is the percentage point at which you would become alarmed? That information has not been shared with us at this point in time. But again, when they look at a series of different events and occurrences, then they may come to us and say, you need to close the school. Or, and they have also said that that is going to be their last resort because they're very hopeful that by having half or less than half, of the children physically present in the building, that we won't, reach whatever their threshold ends up to be at that point in time. So I'm sorry I don't have a more definitive answer than that.
There are some questions about, what about if a child is home on quarantine, but still able to engage in work? How will they access the education that's happening?
Well, Jen, I think this is a good time because I'm also seeing a lot of questions about Canvas. So I'm going to speak a little bit to that. Canvas is going to be used by the hybrid model, but also with the online model. And I think we have a really good structure set up in the district that all the teachers have been trained on Canvas and are continuing to be trained on Canvas, even as they're home this summer. But we also have mentors or kind of specialists in every building that is there to assist the teachers. And then that mentor has a mentor that's kind of seeing over all the elementary. So there's a lot of expertise, which is great because it is a new platform. So we've moved away from Google Online and we've moved to the Canvas. And so that's kind of the plan for the students that are quarantined, is that the work will be available to them. Videos would be available to them, just as they are to the other students as well. And that's kind of like the extra bonus, is that with the Canvas platform, we can put out a lot for the kids that they can watch if they need to kind of get a refresher on the course, or not at all if they don't need it, or for the kids that are quarantined, it would be available to them. So hope that answered that question.
Just to add to that too, Ms. Mastrella, the fact that Canvas lays out, as you stated, that a very well laid out to-do list daily. So it's not a bunch of clicks. It definitely streamlines it much better than the experience you may have had by Google Classroom earlier. But at this time, by moving to Canvas, by having that as a resource, the layout is much different and allows more streamline, a little more independence, and a little more straightforward approach to what you may have experienced before. And especially with student transition out to back to in, they still have that access to be able to move forward in their learning.
We have another sort of curriculum related question. Are we still expecting teachers and students to cover the same curriculum in a year as they would have before coronavirus? So I can tell you that the state still requires that we have 900 minutes of instruction for our elementary students and 990 for our secondary students. I can tell you that late spring, it was announced that there is still an intention for there to be a PSSA test and a Keystone test administered in the spring. I can tell you our teachers are working really hard to find ways to ensure that our students still have an understanding of the standards required in their grade level, in whatever model that we have here. And that may mean that we don't necessarily read all the same books. We don't necessarily complete all the same units, but that's because the teachers have gone through and made decisions about what is an enduring standard, what is a standard that will last and you'll need to know how to do this for years to come. What is a standard that is so particular to this grade and they won't learn it anywhere else, and we need to make sure they learn it. So this is the kind of work that's going to be done. I will tell you that when it's online, it needs to be done differently. You cannot send home the same amount of work and expect students to be able to consume it and work with it and then create and turn around and understand it in the same timeline. That doesn't mean that they won't learn it to the same depth or maybe even have the potential to learn it to a greater depth. It just means that it will look different than what it has looked like in the past. And I appreciate that people are thinking through that. And we also got several very kind compliments about our teachers and just recognizing that this will be challenging, and it will. And also offers of support. What can we do as parents? We're getting on here. I've actually gotten emails about that too. And I just, while we're talking about the chat here, wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you. And we will be in touch, principals in particular, about sort of how we can work together on it. I know that's something we've been doing from the beginning. Okay, so back to the questions. How large are the classes in the cohorts? Can you just tell us a little bit more about what that will look like in the classroom?
Sure, I can jump in there. Of course, there's some, variation depending on the grade level and the class size, but in an average second grade class at Linwood, I think we had 23 students last year. So, they'll be just split down the middle, we think. It's a little tricky to know those numbers just now as we're waiting to see, how many of those second graders will be in Haverford Online. So we'll take out the Haverford Online students and the other students will be split. So perhaps somewhere around 11, 12 students in each cohort in each grade.
Great. A question, will the assignments submitted I'm assuming in the off days of the hybrid model be graded, and will students receive feedback?
Absolutely, they'll receive feedback. So that's somebody, I've seen the question about the concern about the Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, so curiosity about that. The fact that we're able to provide front loading on the days that these students are in-house on Monday and have that follow-up and see what kind of feedback that they need as a return for Wednesday will allow us to be able to do that, to provide the feedback, to give, to provide further instruction, to be able to grade the assignments and be able to move them forward. Because the more communication we get, the more students see themselves being successful, the more their efficacy rises, and that's exactly what we want.
And a piece of our teachers training over the summer as we were learning Canvas 2 is really looking at what are the best ways to provide feedback virtually. And so, we were figuring that out in the spring. And so it's neat that our teachers have even had some training and are being thoughtful for, the students who are working from home on Canvas, how we can do that and provide authentic, real feedback to them.
A question, will the same material be taught live to each cohort of student on their respective days? So I can tell you, we are going to progress through the curriculum every day of the week. It is not our intention to get through half of the curriculum. So there will be learning that occurs on Monday, and then that learning will continue on Tuesday. On Tuesday, you have a different group of kids and you can say, how'd you do with yesterday's learning? Okay, great, here's your new learning. And that's what the new learning is that the at-home group is doing as well, but some are getting it face-to-face. It will not necessarily be a, like, exactly this and exactly that. You really have to go with what was understood, where are we with this group, so you can know what you can ask them to do when they're home, so you can know how to follow up with them. The truth is our teachers do that all the time. They just usually get to have every day that they see the kids to make those adjustments, but they will be staying on pace. They will be everybody's getting through the same curriculum no matter which hybrid cohort you're in.
Yeah, we made a note about meeting students where they are. So the fact that we'll scaffold and pick up exactly and know through our formative assessments and engaging the learners, particularly in that small environment, that's what we'll be able to pick up, just as Ms. Sachs just stated.
And Jen, if I could just add before you go on, the folks on attending this live meeting tonight are seeing a group of administrators, who have been talking about the work that has been taking place across the district. Well, I also want to mention that our teachers are hard at work in terms of looking at what they think is possible. And I know that over just the last few days into last week, 2 of the questions that they were brainstorming and working as a collective group from K to 12, looking at was that idea of how do we ensure that we expose children and give them opportunities to interact with more than 50% of the curriculum. And that's what our teachers do best. So they're the right group of people for us to have put that challenge out there and see what they can come back with. And the second question that they were working their way through was one something that came up a little bit earlier. So if a child has to quarantine for 14 days, the child is not so ill that they cannot engage in work. How does that child stay on pace with what's taking place in the classroom so that as soon as they return, they don't feel left out, right? That they're ready to continue moving. So they're 2 important pieces of work that our teachers are already engaged in. How can both of those come to fruition?
I have some brave souls offering if we can send out some Canvas logins early, they will work on getting kids logged in. So we will see what we can do about that as soon as we have to have our system roll over and get everybody their login information. But yes, we also plan, teachers are already working on how to get kids oriented to using Canvas. And there are a whole series of tutorials for families and parents to use. We know that's one of the challenges is getting your kid to go through it when you don't even know how to do it. So not only will they be doing it in class, but you will also have access to those things as well as guardians and parents. I did have a question, is the hybrid curriculum identical to the online only curriculum? So if we're talking about Haverford Online, then I can tell you the K through 2, that's it. We're using all the same materials, all the same curriculum, everything's the same. Grades 3 through 5, it depends on whether or not we have enough students in any one particular grade that we can reallocate the teacher from being a teacher in school to being an online only teacher. If that is the case, we will use the Haverford curriculum, all the same resources, everything is exactly the same. If it's not the case, we will be using what's called Pearson Connexus as the basis for the curriculum. There will still be a Haverford teacher assigned to the children, but that teacher won't be conducting live class the way we are in K through 2. That teacher will be supporting students as they work their way through the Pearson Connexus curriculum. They will have live meetings with a teacher daily, but it won't necessarily be for every single subject. There will be a sense of community. We will pull kids together in grades 3 through 5. We will work, together academically as well as socially, but it won't be exactly the same curriculum. It will have been curated by our Haverford teachers. It will be supported by our Haverford teachers, but it won't be the backbone of the curriculum in those grades if we don't have enough students. We have next question. Let's see here. Oh, can you go back and forth between, not exactly back and forth, but at what points can you re-enter the hybrid model if you've chosen the online model?
I will take that, and then if any of my colleagues want to jump in, they certainly can. We recognize that family situations can change, and the needs in the home can certainly change, and where possible, we want to be accommodating. And that, with that being said, that may not always be possible. One example that I will give you for that. Mrs. McGilvery mentioned there could be 12 children in a classroom. We have to socially distance those children 6 feet from the teacher. So I have, kind of joked around with some of my colleagues here saying, well, you're no longer going to be able to say to me, well, I can put another child in there if I could get another desk. That's not going to be possible. So we're really trying to encourage people that what they select in the beginning, to stay in what they select in the beginning. If people decide that, for my family situation, maybe in the household, it's no longer good for me to have my child coming back in school, even though it is only the 2 days a week, then we will look to get them into Haverford Online. I think it's important to remember that program, has already started. There's a cohort of kids already working together. So it would be like moving in new, into that situation. So where we can, but we're going to have limitations that we will not be able to get around all of the time to make some things work.
A question has come up a couple of times. Will we be doing temperature checks?
No, we are not doing temperature checks. I'm assuming that question means as everyone arrives, as students arrive, we are not going to be doing temperature checks. If a parent comes to a building and has to come into the building, there will be temperature checks for adults coming in that capacity.
Great. Just a question to address again, this concept of heterogeneous groups as opposed to leveling groups for this year while we are engaged in this hybrid model. Any of the principals want to speak to that again, just clarifying and making sure everybody understands what's happening there?
I mean, Joe brought up the heterogeneous earlier. Heterogeneous is basically we're not leveling students. We're making sure every student gets what they need, particularly in a smaller class environment, just as much as we do even in usually it's our grades K through 3 who are grouped heterogeneously, except for, third grade, used to be math. However, grades 4 and 5, we've gone to unleveling. Basically, the idea is that all of our teachers are responsible, just as we are as school leaders, to have knowledge of each learner, where they stand in terms of the standards, their achievement. And as far as the pacing goes in a smaller environment, we're going to be able to have even greater knowledge of that as the students are learning each day, whether it's formative assessment. The instruction will be tailored and adjusted based off where those students are. For example, a student may be able to may not need as much practice. They might not need as much modeling. They may be able to just start right into an area of enrichment. And this has zero to do with gifted or not. It's where the students, what their readiness level is. So that's what heterogeneous grouping is. It's not homogeneous grouping where all students are at the same exact level. We're looking at the readiness level for every learner and building off that knowledge with the appropriate resources to make sure they continue to progress in their learning.
A couple of questions. I've already filled out my survey or my parent preference form, but I've changed my mind. What do I do? How do I tell someone? That's fine. That's fine. It was a preference form at that time. We are asking that those who are sticking with their Haverford Online or have changed their mind and now want Haverford Online to actually complete the registration form that is now available on our website. And we will use those registration form numbers to make our final decisions about reallocating our resources. So the first the preference form really gives us an idea of we can get started. And then once we get the final information from the registration forms, we'll be able to make those final decisions about how we can offer our program. So no worries if you answered and you've changed your mind, that's quite all right. A couple of sort of, I don't know if it's logistical or like what's going to happen if, what's the idea of principles of, you know, if there's a kid in the room who has a medical condition and can't wear the mask, or, you know, someone falls and they skin their knee, is the nurse still going to be able to put a Band-Aid on them, or are they going to have to do that themselves? Like, what's it going to be like with those situations?
We are going to, and everyone here has said as much, you know, we're going to maintain the same warm and compassionate culture that is familiar to all of our buildings, you know, any of the 5 elementaries, middle and high school. You know, a child who, I saw one of the questions, a child forgets his or her mask. We are going to have additional resources available for our children. We don't want our children to be excited about things, unsettled about things that if we can minimize that to the greatest degree possible, we're going to do all we can for that. We recognize that this is a very unsettling time for these children, and we are taking every precaution necessary to make sure that we have in our buildings and our classrooms things that will help a child do that, whether it's a good relationship with the teacher, an additional mask, an extra pencil, a walk to the nurse's office so that he or she can get that knee cleaned up, Neosporin, and right back into their classroom. You know, so these are things that we are taking precautions and we are being very considerate about in every, I hope, maybe not every, but myriad ways, so that we cover all of our bases. We recognize that this is a difficult time for our children, and we are certainly working very hard to make it as normal, I don't know if that's the right word, but as palatable as possible for them.
I'm working on my wait time. I don't want to cover, if anybody else wants to jump in.
I'm going to add one more note on that. This is like one of the biggest things that our teachers and our staff members are, and that we're thinking about too. Like, oh, we're going to miss the hugs for kids, and what is going to happen when they fall down at recess. And, you know, just a small little example, but our school nurse at Linwood, I was talking with her a couple of days ago, and she said, you know, I'm thinking I'm going to have my supplies ready, and I'm going to just walk around at recess probably, if I'm able to, or if there's another nurse in the office. So even thinking proactively, like how they can help with those kinds of situations to make it work. So it's a small little example, but it's on all of our minds how we can take care of our kids in the same way that we're used to taking care of them and they are used to being cared for.
Thank you for that. I know it's reassuring to hear that. Lots of questions about school supply lists. When will what we are assuming will be sort of updated school supply lists be available? And I think likewise, you know, what are we going to tell our kids about what school looks like? And how can we help prepare them for what school is going to look like?
And then Jen, I could jump in on that too. I think it's going to be real key for us when we're creating our videos. You know, each of the elementary principals talked about creating a video and welcoming the kids and showing them what it's going to look like as they're transitioning through the hallway, what's going to look like in the classroom, as specials as well too. So that's going to be key, that visual, the kids knowing that this is going to be the new normal, but it's going to be welcoming for them. That's going to be really important for us.
I think as far as school supply lists go, I mean, you know, years past, we've been kind of collecting all the supplies and putting them together and really emphasizing sharing and a community. And obviously, we're not going to be doing that. So what we're going to ask is for slimmer supply lists, and what students bring in, they're going to bring home with them. So their pencil, their marker, their scissors, it's theirs. And, you know, this will be specified in the list, but it's going to go in their own container. It's going to be in their backpack. It's going to be on them, and it'll follow them home. So.
And it'll be important that they're taking everything home, including their technology, because just in case if we have to pivot, we want to make sure the kids have everything and then we're ready to transition right away to online if we have to.
Yeah, and in addition, the desks will be shared, so we can't leave anything in the desks. So students will bring in baggies would be best. Keep everything in the baggie, right in your school bag. When you use it, put it back. Shared items will be cleaned before they move into any other area of the building. But yes, I'll just making sure we are.
And we've been working with the teachers as well to see where will they place their belongings. Will it be on the back of their chair? Will they put their coat back there to keep their things with them, because we're not going to be able to share cubbies or lockers or anything like that as well.
And to help all of our students transition, we're even looking at creating social stories for each individual elementary building so that students and parents can review that and really have a nice walkthrough of what to expect in a way that we know works for our kids.
A couple of specific questions. Are the Lysol wipes going to be required? Because nobody can find them anywhere. So no, it doesn't look like they are. And another question about if they could find out what cleaning supplies are going to be used. I believe that kind of information will be available on the website.
In the health and safety plan.
In the health and safety plan. Are computers expected to come to school and go home every day? We're all nodding our heads yes, and then we're also cringing because we know kindergartners, right? But that's it. We're going to do it, and we're going to teach them how to be responsible. You know, they learn what we teach them. We're going to teach them how to do it. We're going to reinforce it. We're going to do our best with it.
And a vote of confidence, Jen, there's successful models where kids are already doing it, one-to-one in other districts where they're bringing it back and forth. It's just a matter of the families at home. We're one of those families that has been doing this for the last few years with our children. It's a matter of making sure that it's charged and returned the next day as much as possible. So it's going to be a learning experience, but I have a vote of confidence for our children and our families.
It is possible. I see a thumbs up from Dr. Ramundis as well, who has experienced this in his home. I am keenly aware of the time here. It's 6:27. We have about 3 minutes left. We do want to be respectful of your time, so we'll try and get some last-minute answers in here as well. There were just want to note that we've had a few comments that we're looking for more time for kindergarten, that the 2 half days was something they wanted to see more of for socialization purposes. So I don't know that anyone has an answer to that, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we have seen that on our list of questions, and it's something we are continually asking ourselves as well. And how can we, ensure that they're getting the most out of that time? Also, subs. Are there going to be subs? Are they building subs? What can we expect when it comes to subs? Anybody want to take that one?
We're in the hiring process now. We've interviewed countless candidates, I feel like, and we are really putting together a good pool of candidates from across everywhere, looking at applications and trying to make sure we are bringing in good people like we always do. So this is something that we are looking at. Each building I know is working to, get their building sub and people lined up for maternity leaves, or, if there's a case where we have an extended absence, we want to make sure we have a good pool of people we could dip into, so who would be ready to fill those shoes of an experienced veteran teacher, perhaps, for a couple of days, a week, or whatever might be necessary. We recognize that as a need, and we have been working very hard to fill that.
We're also looking at, creative opportunities that may come up. For example, most recently, Kutztown University approached us about the possibility of having some reading specialist interns. These are individuals who hold a teaching certificate and are working to add their reading specialist certification onto that. And they will work closely with a reading specialist for 3 days during the week. And then 2 days they are available and can serve as a substitute teacher in the district. So while we were thrilled to get additional support in terms of reading specialists and working with our reading specialists, the first thing that we all immediately thought of was there's an opportunity to get some additional substitute coverage into the building as well. With that being said, that is a significant concern that we have. That, will we be able to remain open with the staff that we have? And a very important reason for keeping everyone healthy. We don't want anyone to get sick under any set of circumstances. But things like wearing masks, sanitizer, the 6 feet of social distancing will help us to keep our staff healthy. And that's critical for us.
Dr. Rushi, thank you. It is now 6:30, and I just wanted to invite you to make any closing remarks. I'll just mention again, this session is recorded for anyone who would like to watch it or rewatch it. It will be posted on our website. I want to thank our principals and then leave it to Dr. Rushi.
Thanks, Jen. Yes, just in wrapping things up, Thursday evening of this week, our board will have before them, or they have before them now already, the health and safety plan. Understandably, a lot of people automatically think that that's the plan. Are you choosing hybrid? Are you choosing Haverford Online? It's a health and safety plan. So it goes into, a question that was asked earlier about the cleaning products that are used. How the social distancing is being approached in the building. The nitty gritty of how we actually cohort students and it is not part of that plan. That is not what is required. You just have to indicate if you're going to approach a hybrid model or a full 5-day opening for all students. So that plan, once approved by the board, then a lot of your communication will start to come from the building principals as they take that plan and look at how does it come to life in each one of their schools. So just as you would start to receive communication from them sometime in August, which begins later this week, as you would begin to receive communication, you'll start to get increased communication now from the principals, letting you know some of the details that we think people are still looking to know, and some of the details that we're still trying to work out. So I guess in closing, thank you for your patience and your understanding of the fluid and often challenging nature of this virus. And I will speak for my colleagues that we hope you and all of yours in your home are healthy and all doing well. Thank you.